That was just so thank you, Katie. That was so lovely. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Is Colleen here? Is she online? Okay, we need somebody to take notes.
Yeah, I guess
Interesting.
Can you give me 1 second? Let me. It is, but give me 1 second. Let me figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
We still need a secretary.
Yes. Go ahead and tell some jokes for 1 minute and let me figure this out.
Did you hear the one about the guy that? No, I don't know. Okay, let's. I think we'll do
Okay.
just a new member introduction.
I will do it for your colleague.
No, we got it.
I got it.
Well, okay, I'll just call this meeting to order and we'll start. We will start by approving April's minutes. Does anybody have any corrections to April's general meeting minutes?
I move we accept.
Okay, Kathy moves we accept. Rose seconds. All in favor of accepting the minutes? Okay, great, awesome. Heather, would you like to say a few words? We've got a new member, which is awesome. Wonderful. Welcome. Welcome.
There's some music in the boxes down there. Take anything that you want, because some of it is you'll use.
Where are you located?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I am very close by. I'm just over in kind of the Ballard area.
Fantastic.
Working on making a website. My phone number's on the sign-up sheet. Yeah, okay.
Fantastic. Welcome. Love to have you here. It's great. Anybody else? No new other members? All right. We have a big 2025-2026 budget to go over and approve. So I'm going to invite Anne, our stalwart, amazing treasurer, to come up and talk a little bit about that.
Okay. We've gotten used to doing this every May, so you might remember this. We have a budget committee that meets like end of March, beginning of April usually, to go over this budget line by line. So there's some copies there. You can follow along if you can read the small print. I'm sorry for that, but so what I put on here was the budget from 2024 to 25, and now the proposed budget is for 25 to 26, and our fiscal year goes from July 1st to June 30th.
Yeah, can you pause for 1 second so I can send this to the online people?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, give me 1 quick second. Tell another joke.
Maybe not. Oh. Okay. Maybe I can.
Hold on, I'm almost there. I'm sorry. I'm causing an awkward moment. Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were walking around like the pool area in my condo, and then we went, my boyfriend went down and grabbed it, we kept calling her him, but her name is Zahara, because we took her to the emergency vet, and she had a microchip, and she was so sweet. And then they found her owner, but then her owner, it was like 10:30 at night, and her owner was apparently drunk. And so it took like an hour to get there. So I was like, is this like a fit home for this cat? And then the vet
Okay.
said, we can't judge. And then
Okay, we
Okay,
always
you're good.
evolve into talking about cats, don't we?
Okay, you're all good.
Peter has another cat.
Well, no, it's not a cat. It's student Zihan, who has also joined just now.
Oh! Yay! Okay, am I good?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So just to kind of clarify how this is done, you can see the very top line says income from Dorothy Woodcock account. So that is basically the way we manage our budget. We go to that fund when we really need to. So I can tell you that we never, ever get to $20,000. So typically, it's more in the range of 9 to 12 on bad years. And right now, I think we're headed for 9 probably, or so. And I do, if anybody has questions and interest in, I have one copy here of our year-to-date expenses through April. So if you have questions about that, you can look at this. There are, basically the thing that the budget and the board struggles with every year is the rising cost of venues. And that's what really drives all of our need for money and drives some of our registration fees upward. And we have worked on that a little bit this year. And Simon Fizet is due now for a big look at. And so we're going to be forming a committee to work on Simon Fizet and figure out how to manage that better. And you will maybe notice that under Simon Fizet this year, it was divided into low strings and high strings for the first time. And so that'll be a new thing for Simon Fizet, and with 2 different chairs. That's my phone, sorry. Otherwise, I do believe there is nothing terribly new here. And it's so close, you can see the bottom line, 45,125 was this last year, and we're going to 46,525 this year. So, are there any questions? I don't want to go through this line by line because you'll all be asleep by the time I'm done. Anybody have any wondering? Yes, Chrissy.
Just one on the math for the Jazz Rights Blues Festival. So the income was 300 and the expense was 200 and then the profit loss was 0.
Oops. That's a spot I need to just. This happens to me with these spreadsheets. Yeah, sorry. So that would be a 100. Yeah.
Congratulations on all the other spots.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think there's more I can answer if anybody's. I just don't know that I want to go through everything. Is there anything
Well,
you think of, Joseph?
talk about, for the people that are new, like where does the money come from to cover the stuff that we can't pay for?
Okay, so Dorothy Woodcock was a member some time ago, and in around 2008,
Or 8 or 10?
well, it was 8.
8.
She gave him a lot of money. She requested to SMTA, and she left a lot of money in her will. And it was 2008, and so the board said, "Okay, let's just hold on to this right now and not invest it." And so then I got involved. I think more like 2012 or so. And then by then we started to invest the money, and now it's invested. And we just are watching that. We have a committee that meets to talk about that investment. We about managing it with a woman at Raymond James who manages it for us. There's a Dorothy Woodcock committee that Kathy could always tell you more about, that figures out, well, how shall we spend this money? And so it's always a balance between figuring out, how can we benefit all our teachers by using some of this money, yet how can we make sure it still is there, 25, 50 years from now? So it's that tension we have to manage, and and then I should also say, we just in the past couple of years received from Willard Schultz an bequest. Is it bequest? Money, yeah, from his will, and that is to support the Simon Physay competition. So we are also working on figuring out what to pull from that and just to keep Simon Physay going. Does that?
Yeah, great. I mean, does anybody have any other questions about the budget? I know it's a lot of money. Go from personally.
Yeah.
We have to vote to approve this budget, so
Yeah.
will somebody move to approve the prerequisites? Dan moves. Peter seconds. All in favor of approving the proposed 2025-2026 budget? Aye. Great, thank you so much, Anne.
Okay, and if anybody does want to see, expenses year to date, I've got it.
Thanks.
Okay, we are coming to a close for this year, which means we have some new officers coming on our board. So Ryan, do you have a second?
Yeah.
Do you wanna
And
come?
potentially, we have to vote.
Yes.
So we have a lot of cool new people joining us. We have a lot of cool people sticking around. We're grateful for both. We have to vote on some of them. So if Suzanne, right there, just looking at you and somehow it just slipped my mind where you were. Yes, you have to leave. Suzanne is currently nominated for president-elect, so she would be following up after Josie. In addition to Suzanne, Anne, I think you have to make your way out as well, who is going to be staying in her post as treasurer. Eric Branner is not here at the moment, but he will be sticking around if everybody agrees to it as a board member at large. And then in addition to that, I think Laura Dean is both of our board members at large to be are in absentia at the moment. And our secretary to be, fantastic. So Ming Yi will be our incoming secretary, and then we will have Ming Yi Chen. And then we will have these two lovely board members at large to go with our lovely treasurer and president-elect out there. So, is there anybody that would like to launch an alternate slate or ask any questions about that? Or
Isn't it
okay.
also, don't we also have the one other position that came to the board meeting? I'm blanking on her name right now.
Maybe you're thinking of Stephanie?
Yes.
Well, so the VPs we don't have to vote on.
Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry.
So yeah, we have other people
My
that
bad.
are new and taking on new exciting things as well, but
Okay.
we just don't have to vote on
Great.
those ones. We have to vote on these ones. Barring any commentary to the contrary, I guess, do we have a motion to approve the slate of elected officers? Grand, thank you, Pam. Do we have a second? Tremendous, thank you, Grace Ann. So all in favor of the suggested slate? Tremendous! You all can come back in now, if you'd like. Thank you for those that couldn't be here as well.
I'm actually going to invite all of the board members up just so that you know who we are. Kathy, VP of Legacy Management.
Did I get that right?
Stephanie, our new VP of Recitals. Jessica, our VP of Membership.
Yes, Jessica.
Okay, anyway, here we are, at least some of us. Oh my gosh, Peter!
I'm like, I don't know what's happening this morning.
Peter is the VP of Teacher Development. I got it. Anyway, here we are. So come see us if you have any questions. Thank you guys. end, I would like to take a moment to honor somebody that's stepping down from the board after many, many, many years of service. Pam, will you come up? Thank you so much for everything you've done. Here you go. This is for you, and that's for you.
Not the crummy cup,
but
the flower.
I'm just giving out the cup.
Anyway, thank you so much, Pam. A big round of applause for Pam. Okie dokie. Do we have any announcements? Ro.
Just speaking
We have the online people,
yes.
so.
Thank you. Hello, hello everybody. So speaking of cats, we have a basket for donations for the WSMTA basket that will be auctioned off at the conference in June. And the theme this year was Meowsicle Moments. So if you have cash on you, you can drop it in there. If you want to write a check, you can make the check payable to SMTA. Kathy and I will do the shopping. And just as an alternate, if you really want to donate but you don't have cash on you or a check today, you can, if you trust me, Zelle it to me. And I will promise you I will not abscond with your money. Kathy and I will go shopping and buy as much as we get in, we'll fill the basket with that amount of items. So I'm registered with my full email address, which is in the directory. It's probably on the website. I can write it down for you if you want it. Or maybe I should just say it, then it'll be
You
on
can
the...
also say it, yeah.
Okay, RONYC714@AOL.com. Sorry, I'm still AOL, so thank you.
Yes, and I'll just piggyback on that by saying, hope to see you guys all at the state conference. It's going to be great. So please register if you haven't already. Anybody else? Gracie?
I just want to remind everyone that over the summer in July, there's the Walk to the Future Festival. It is going to be at Roosevelt Station with a grand piano there, and all instruments are welcome to perform. It's a great way to share classical music with the community at large. And Leanne did a registration on our website, so it's super easy and super perfect to sign up because they're in 5-minute increments. And so you can have your students register and then just show up for a 5-minute slot. You can reserve a half-hour slot, you can reserve an hour slot for your studio, but the registration goes smooth as ice cream. It's really awesome. So we have that going through. Karen McCullough's going to be the monitor for that piano that day, and we just want to have people come by and play. It'd be really awesome to share with the world at large. Thank you.
Anybody else? Leanne?
Hi, it's your administrative coordinator. I probably don't need to actually tell the people that are here because you usually, if you're at the meetings, are really on top of it. But please remember to renew your membership prior to, July 1st? Because we start the yearbook in July and have to get it published very, very early. Like we put it in print pretty much like in August so that we can actually send it out at the beginning of the year. So what happens is if you haven't registered for next year by July 1st, it doesn't mean you can't be part of SMTA, but you have a chance of not being included in the hard copy yearbook. Just also a reminder that this year I created a whole online yearbook for the first time, so people that came in late, you can actually still see all their information. You just have to put in a passcode online and then you can actually see everybody's. So if you have to be delayed, you'll still get on our online, but just for the hard copy, make sure all your friends know to get in by July 1st.
Jessica?
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Jessica, and I am representing the social events team. I'm here to present our social events for the month of May. So Tosca is still happening tomorrow, which is a Seattle Opera production, and that's its closing night. If you go to our staccato notes, there is a friends and family discount for $60 tickets for Tosca Friends. So tomorrow is closing night. Please support. Up next, we have our tapas party. Tapas is a Spanish word for small plates or hors d'oeuvres. That will be this coming Sunday, May 18th at 5:30 p.m. at the Seattle Marriott's location, which is located in the Redmond Town Center. I realize you probably can't see the details, but I'm showing this so that you can look in your staccato notes and check it out. So if you are planning to come, please either text message me or email me at your earliest convenience. I think we have like 1 or 2 spots left, so I'd love to see you all there. And I do want to take a quick poll. Sophia and I want to host a event where we go on a walk at Seward Park. So our membership ranges from like as far south as Puyallup all the way to Everett. So raise your hand if you would go on a walk in Seward Park. Okay, keep your hands raised if you would come on a Friday at 10 a.m. Would you come on a Friday at 7 a.m.? Okay, good to know. How about on a Sunday evening? Very good. Okay, so one of our next events in June is going to be a walk at Seward Park, and I'll release the date and the time. And then on June 13th is going to be our final end of year party for June. So I hope to see some of you at our next events. Thank you so much.
Yeah, June 13th. That was the end of the year date, party date. Anybody? Oh, Peter.
Hello. So I'm Peter, and as many of you know, I grow plants. And when I move my cacti, bits fall off. And I put them in little pots, and they are out there, and you just take them, as many as you would like. They grow very beautifully, and they have big, white, fragrant flowers. They don't like to be too wet, so you water them, and then you make sure that they drain. So, do they need to be in a sunny window? They would be happiest in a sunny window, yes. Do they need to be fed? Not during the winter, but if you have, you buy I think it's Schultz, isn't it? Or Miracle Grow, or any of those soluble things, if you put a spoonful of that in the water, when you water them, they like that during the summer, and that makes them grow. But during the winter, and so the idea is that you water them maybe once a month in winter, and then in the summer you water them as soon as they're dry. So they're out there, and if you take them and they don't grow, don't worry, their bits fall off all the time. So. And then the other thing I'd like to say thank you to Josie and to Leanne and to Ryan, because the Oregon virtual chapter is just starting up. Oregon is having a virtual chapter for people who are geographically unable or who are physically unable to attend in-person meetings, which is a wonderful thing. And I'm part of Oregon as well, and so I'm part of that startup. And we were talking about how wonderful it would be if someone could teach us about being online and being musical online and teaching online. And I said, Ryan is doing a wonderful presentation on Friday for Seattle. And they said, oh, if only we could be there. And I asked Josie and Leanne and Ryan if it would be possible for the Oregon people to come. And they said yes. So thank you all for allowing the Oregon people to come, and welcome to not only the people who are here, but the people who are distant and online, and they're waving. Okay, anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, do we have anybody else? Well, then I will
Okay.
introduce our presenter.
Wait.
Oh,
We have an online
an online
one.
question. Love it.
Let's see, Anne Reese said in regards to recital venues, kind of going back to the budget, I think, Aegis Living Greenwood has a nice little Halen Grand in their lovely living room. In the Seattle Music Teachers Association discussion group on Facebook, there's more info and a thread between Tom Lee and her from this past February about retirement homes that welcome students to come perform for them. Tomorrow, her students will be playing their spring recital at 3 o'clock in case anyone wants to come and see what it's like.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. And yeah, and if anybody at any point has any venue suggestions, they are welcome. So thank you. All right. Well, let me introduce our past president, Ryan, who has been our online guru and helped us all through the pandemic. And I'm so excited that he's going to talk to us today about online lessons and other online tidbits.
It's very nice to be here. There's going to be a lot of little moments like this. I'm going to try and do a little thing to make it a little better than it is, which is kind of the theme of this whole shebang, actually. For you all, am I sufficiently visible?
Yes.
Great. For you all, this is not quite it, but it's about to be. Do you feel like you can see it relatively clearly?
We can also push up.
Yeah, we can move our chairs closer.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, yeah.
should we all just move our chairs closer?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Well, I mean, if you
But anyway, so now that it's actually on to the first slide, so you guys take a sec, move yourselves along if you like. Again, see if I can't pull this out a little bit more. And then everybody that's at home actually gets to see this just like as it is, because it's just being shared directly. But in the meantime, so all of the things on the stage notwithstanding, I wanted to start. Let me get this out. I wanted to start by dispelling any misapprehension that I came to this naturally. I did not start as somebody that really likes tech. In fact, my dad is great at tech, and maybe that's why, but I just really did my best to avoid it for most of my life. And I took a great deal of joy in the fact that I play an acoustic instrument, because everything else in my life, I would walk around and be like, this is supposed to turn on, but it doesn't. Or this is supposed to save, but it doesn't. Or I swear to God, I put that there, but it's not there. And things of that nature. So my attitude about tech was largely that the future is broken. It is not that way anymore, but it really was in a deep way that way. And then the pandemic happened, and it didn't really matter how we felt. We had to do it, or we stopped teaching, so we figured it out. Which is to say that I come from a place of deep discomfort where this stuff is concerned. But good news, there is comfort to be found. So that's keep that in mind, and I'll keep trying to check in as we go through here. And mostly I'm going to try and keep it short, so that there's plenty of time for Q&A. But to get to comfort, we are going to take this path. So we're going to go through staging and video and sound and settings, and then sort of the last thing is probably the thing we'll go least into because it really would deserve its own thing. But if you actually want to teach online, you have to start thinking about what does it mean to have a community with your studio, with your students, and all of that online. Because there are a lot of things that can get in the way by virtue of being literally disconnected, right? You don't have the easiest overlap, little things like that. Anyway, so on to staging. We want to start by asking ourselves, either as a student or a teacher, but probably both, what do I do in this situation? So I still take lessons as an adult. And I'm a big weirdo about it. So if my teacher shows me something, I'm crouching down to look. And I do this as a teacher when I was teaching in person also. But I'm trying to see everything. I want to see how they're pedaling. I want to kind of see, like, okay, what's your body look like when you do this? How do you move? How does your arm shape itself to match the things I'm hearing and the quality of sound and all of that stuff? That's very important to me. We want to ask, you know, as far as what we want to see, how do we set our students up? So there will be a little bit of a lesser requirement, but we want to make sure that we can see enough information to sort of recognize the source of anything we hear, or to notice if they, you know, if they're getting nervous as they're playing and things like that, and all of the little body things that you watch for in a lesson without really probably thinking about it that much anymore. It's just what you do. But if it's not just happening in front of you, you have to account for that. So, again, connection comes up here. It's very vital. One of the biggest challenges, I think, of doing anything online, really, is convincing the person on the other end that you are not ChatGPT, that you are not a robot. You are another human that's sitting there in that room with them that is trying to help them learn something. So it's not like you have infinite resources to do that, but one big one that everybody can do is eye contact. And it's, you know, my students and I joke about this, because of course, if you've ever had the experience of you're looking at a Zoom meeting, you're looking at a video chat or whatever, and it really feels like you're making eye contact with the person that you're looking at, that is because they are staring at a camera right over here, and they're making eye contact with that camera, and so it comes across making it seem like, hey, we're on the same page, we're here together. So, for me, little things like that, I was like, well, what can I do to account for that? I said, well, what if I had like a camera watching me, and then I could watch them next to that, and kind of do my best to bridge the gap there. What's vital versus valuable boils down to there's a lot of things we need. We need good sound. We need them to be able to hear what we want them to hear. We need to be able to show at least some modicum of like what we look like while we play. And you know, the answers to these questions are going to be slightly different if you're a different instrument, right? Like, I think a pianist, by virtue of both a seated instrument and perhaps like some of the finer points of it, I found that I needed more angles. I feel like if I were a violinist or a singer, I would just turn or like approach something, so it might not be that you need quite so much stuff. But that's something you'd have to answer. You have to figure that out. And then finally, once you've kind of thought through this and puzzled it out and answered these questions, you have to actually figure out like, well, where do I put stuff to do that? So for me, I ended up with this drawing, which in the best of times is a child's drawing. So if you can't really make out much of what's up there, that's fair. You wouldn't be able to if you were holding it on a sheet of paper. But it is like everybody's favorite 8-year-old piano, you know, as a drawing that is in the middle. And then I've tried to like point out basically those views that I was talking about. So I have, this is meant to be a mic stand, just go with it. And this is meant to be showing like where it's looking down. This is meant to be an overhead, because I like it if I can show like an arm motion or something, for instance. You know, to me, I'm a huge nerd about technique, just in general. I really like the way the body interacts with the instrument and all that stuff comes together, so I want them to see that. And in moments, I want to be able to say, but look at this in particular. So you can't quite see it, but that's meant to be like right on the side of the piano, watching down the keys, so if I need to, I can show a little hand subtlety or something, a finger shape. This over here, again, this is music stand. I love you all for going with me on this. It's a terrible drawing, but it did the job at the time. So this is meant to be like that little ledge sitting above where that phone or something is watching me. Some video is watching and I'm watching them. So you might want to make a similar drawing for your own setup. From there, once you have this sort of mental image of it, you have to ask, well, what do I actually have already? So for me, I had phones, because I'm that person in your life that when you're like, I'm getting rid of this phone. Does anybody want this phone? I'm like, yeah, me please. It was like, if anybody's ever seen the movie Signs, this girl walks around putting cups of water all over the place until the end of the movie, nobody knows why, and then eventually it's like aliens, and smash, and the water gets rid of the aliens. So for me, it was like, why am I taking these phones? And then the pandemic happened. And it turned out that all the webcams in the world tripled in price, and were largely out of stock. And smartphones all have a pretty darn decent camera, and they're better and better as time goes by, and same thing with microphones actually. But you can get apps for things like that. You can make these things work as phones. So I had those. I had a tablet that I didn't really know how to use. I had a box called an audio interface that I had no idea about how to use. I just knew that it was something that was good for sound, because the smartest person in my life at the time for sound gave it to me. I said, oh, I gotta figure out how to use this. Once you've kind of made your list like that, and again, I encourage you to actually like think, what do I have? If I had to do a lesson online, if I was sick, if they were sick, if another pandemic happened, God forbid. You know, what would I actually do with this, and what could I upgrade quickly? What would I want to upgrade eventually? So for me, I had a perfectly fine keyboard. I had a P125. It's a fine Yamaha keyboard. I wouldn't recommend it to a teacher, but I would happily recommend it to a student. So I had to get a new one. So at the end of March 2020, I ordered a keyboard online for like $2,000, which felt insane at the time. It's like, who buys an instrument without ever touching it? But it turned out to be a good idea because everything got pretty short on supply, as you probably all remember. And it made a big difference for me. So anyway, you again would have to think about kind of what you have, what you would want to upgrade. Eventually, I wanted to have multiple angles. So I wanted to figure out, okay, well, how can I bring all this stuff together? How can I make sure that really all of the, oh, look at this moments are served? And once you kind of figure that out, you have to realize, or well, at least, and I should interject here on myself to say, like, all of this stuff was new to me. So if the things I'm saying so far feel like, oh, I know that, that's awesome. Like, good. But literally everything I'm saying was like, I've never thought about this in my life. How do I do this? So I had to face my ignorance and say, well, what even exists to actually accomplish any of these goals I have? So I'm going to introduce some ridiculous words and some really useful equipment here. So gimbals is the first ridiculous word, G-I-M-B-A-L-S. And happily I have a couple of friends that do movie stuff in Hollywood, and at the beginning of all this I called them up and desperate to ask, like, how do you make video look good? Like, how do they do that thing where something just sits there watching from someplace? And these are they, that's how it happens. And essentially, there's a few different kinds here. And the differences boil down to like how do they attach to things. You can see this one has a little like screw clamp that I've got hooked onto a shelf. You can pick it up, and that's what I ended up using for my overhead view. This one is actually here, so it would be something like this where you have a mic stand. And you can set it up, you know, well, okay, this will be like the full body from the side view. And that'll probably look, you know, about right. We'll see. And then the one on the left is more of just like a super simple clamp. Again, it ended up on a shelf, but it's very easy to move around as opposed to the one on the right where you have to like unscrew it and kind of gingerly remove it, and it's kind of big and awkward. So, these things exist. You will want them. Yes?
Would you say a gimbal's like a fancy clamp, or because don't they also like track? Are those all part of the?
Those exist. It's sort of like, you know, they have dumb phones and smartphones, right? Like, it's sort of the features that you can get. So there are totally gimbals like what you just said, where it will actually watch you. And then Apple at this point, and probably other companies as well, have started to include in their video software like that auto tracking thing. So even there, it's literally like, just to show the back of it here, it's literally just this silly little clamp that I've clipped onto this thing. It's like an absolute nothing piece of plastic, except for the fact that it's very convenient for holding your phone. And they make them sized for tablets as well, but like they're all at least going to fit a phone. Any other questions so far? Okay, cool. And yeah, I really I mostly lean on like the flexi arm stuff, or something like this where I can just pick it up and move it around. And like I ended up using gaff tape, so like stage tape or whatever, just because I was living in like the attic of the house and had like very little space, and so everything had to be able to like come out quickly and go away quickly, because otherwise I was just going to fall all the time. Anyway, so gimbals, critical. Can't overstate that. Otherwise, powered USB hubs. Depending on how often you use your computer and how often you try and put other things into it, you're probably aware that there is a sort of a port gap going on, where there are fewer and fewer places on most devices to plug anything at all in. But if you really want to have, you know, a camera here, a camera there, a mic there, whatever else, you need places for those things to go. And not only that, you want all of that to arrive at once. Because it's a very like uncanny valley to find yourself in where like my lips move, but you hear me later. People don't like that. Again, that sense of connection, it breaks it. So you want like sound and sight and all of that to arrive in like one happy family. So you can kind of think of USB hubs as like the park and ride for your sequence. Everybody shows up, they get off their cars, they hop on a bus, and they all go in together. There are a few in here, and I'll say what I'm about to say a few times, but like get the stuff that will work first. Don't go for the like, oh, this thing looks like that thing, but it's half as much, I'm gonna get it. Because I did that for every single one of these things, the whole way along this process. And every single time, the one that looked like that thing, but was half as much, did not work. Or it broke down quickly, or it just like, it was like black magic if I was able to pull it off. She's like, I don't know why you're working today, but keep it up. So, these two, those are what I just described. This one here is the one that I have up here, and it works like a charm for the most part. Eventually I went for something even burlier, but it's a matter of inches, right? Like what can I upgrade now, easily, what do I want to upgrade eventually? You know, little bit. And then another ridiculous word, dongles. D-O-N-G-L-E-S. So dongles are for that situation where like, oh God, I need this to go over there. But those things don't fit. Well, a dongle is your friend. Because basically it just takes, you know, for whatever your situation might be, one thing and converts it to another. And there are sort of limitations to that on some level, though less and less. For a while, and 5 years ago, it was still more this way than it is now. Different cables aren't all the same. I didn't know that. Do you guys know that? Like, some cables will send data and not power. Some will send both. Some will send sound but not video. Like, all of these things, there's variance to it. And until I had to like grapple with it, I was just like, I don't know if it fits. If that goes in that hole just fine, it should do, right? Or like, oh, why would this be different from that? Some of them are faster or slower. So you need these every so often, and particularly if you want to run things into devices. So like you can see here, probably a lot of things that don't quite make sense yet, but this is a dongle, and it is called a camera connector kit. Which is a weird name for something you're going to use for music. But on the outside of it here, you can see there is a place for one of these sort of standard rectangular USBs to plug in. There is also a place for power to plug in. How many of you have taught a lesson online, even one? Tremendous. How many of you in those lessons have had either your own or your student's device die? Yeah! So, we want to be able to run power in addition to whatever else we're running. It's very important, power supply. And then on the right, what we've got here is essentially, so that's an audio interface, and we'll get into those later, but basically they're a place to send sound from mics so that you have a little more knob control, you can kind of fiddle a little bit more naturally, and then eventually have it sort of improved and sent away. It's going into a powered USB hub, which is going into a dongle, which is going into my iPad. And that worked at the time. So these are more general things that I don't exactly have like specific products to point you to that you want to consider. You want to make sure that you're not like sitting in some odd way where you're just like screwed up all day and then you get up and be like, ow, why do I hurt? It's because you sit like you're insane. Like find your space. Lighting is critical. Like you wouldn't know it from the way I'm giving this presentation, but we're dealing with the projector situation. So lighting in general is critical, and it's just the difference between essentially, are you a murky mess, or can they actually, again, connection, can they see your face? Can they see your eyes? Can they see your hands? Can they see the keys? All of these things you want to take care of. And in general, like a good mental model for like how anything that's picking up video works is, somewhere around 25 to 30 times a second, it draws a picture of what it sees. And if you have a bunch of like shadow fluctuation in the back, or if every so often there's like some sort of flare or something like that, that puts a load on your video feed. So that's a little bit heavier. That takes a little bit longer for something like Zoom to deal with. And in turn, what arrives at the other end for your student is a little bit grainier, a little bit less consistent, a little less steady. So, see and be seen. Good lighting stabilizes your video. Angles we've already mostly talked about, but just this idea of planning your moments. If you're a string teacher and every so often you really want them to see your hand, like have something, either an idea of like, I have this extra camera, or I step forward to here, and then, I don't know who plays a stringed instrument like this really, but you know, you get the idea. So that they can see it. Have that in mind, try and plot it out. Think about how you teach, what you often do, and how would I replicate that moment? Power supply, again, it's so annoying when it's like, oh, I'm sorry, that thing that you were watching me through just died, but now we can just make eye contact over here. It's like, that's nice, and I guess I'll watch your shoulders, and I'll have a sense kind of what's going on, and then my ears will fill in some, but like, let's get a plug next time. So, does everybody notice what's going on with the cables up here? That I'm able to like, walk around and sort of be ridiculous, and I'm not like tripping over things? But do we also see that I have a bunch of cables up here? Like there's a bunch of stuff running over here, there's this stuff over here. Make sure that you don't set yourself up with like a whole bunch of trip hazards. Like you don't want to like get up to go grab water or something, pull everything off. Like it sucks, I've done it. So like watch out for that, and again the no skimping thing, we just talked about that, but there are better and lesser cables and cords. Daisy chains. That's the coming from the mindset of like, all cables are the same. If I could just kind of like work out some system of things so that they will eventually reach from A to B, you know, there's the whole alphabet in between, that'll do. Everything you add into the signal path adds an opportunity for something to go wrong. Particularly with sound. Like everything you add along the way, everything that could scratch against something or be a little loose, all of that is like a prospective, like treacherous bastard in your signal. And you want to watch out for this. The bottlenecks, you could have the best stuff in the world, and if all of it goes to something that's kind of cruddy, it's not going to work. So like if you have great mics and a whole bunch of really cool video stuff, and you send it to a computer that has 4 gigabytes of RAM and was made 10 years ago, like there's going to be a bottleneck. So watch out for that. Just keep these things in mind. You know, everybody's situation, everybody's exact need is going to be slightly different, but. So we'll do our best on the actual seeing of it here. I realize it's kind of washed out, but essentially left to right, this is the evolution of my studio. So you can kind of see very sort of a little bit. There's an iPad over here, iPad here. I have a little whiteboard I keep notes on. That red box is sitting right there, you wouldn't know it. And you can see I've got that overhead gimbal set up. You can see I have terrible posture over there. It's awful. I had this stupid little like, you know, I'm sitting here, my laptop's down here, and I'm typing like that the whole time. I got, at one point in the course of sort of refining my studio, I started to lose sensation in my fingertips. Because I was the tech chair at the time, so I'd be writing these articles with a Clarion, and I'd be sitting there like this. And I was like, well, that's not good. So, yes, the gasp is right. It was real scary. So things evolved. Lighting, you can start to see, the left one is from like an actual show, so it's, wouldn't normally have red lighting, but things to keep in mind, indirect lighting is much better than direct lighting. You don't want to like, be washed out, but if you can bounce light off of walls, or if you can have it be more or less emulating like sunlight coming in, that's going to set you up really nicely. And that's sort of my effort here, though of course that this doesn't really seem like it, but I promise it works. Anyway, you can also see the computer has gone from here up to here, from left to right. And that whole reason for that is that I got to go from this to this. And that, like, literally, overnight, like, I felt better at the end of the day of teaching. So, like, keep checking in with yourself as you go. This is my current setup. So it's like descending into a little spaceship, basically. But all of my stuff is in reach. All of my books are right here. I don't have to run anywhere to get anything when I'm in the middle of a lesson. It's right there. A testament to the fact that this stuff does not come naturally to me. This is my calendar. It's not like I don't have Google Calendar. I just write by hand my whole monthly schedule in chalk every month. And I love it because I feel like I need that to know what's going on. So, you know, set up your space in a way that serves you. Like all of this stuff, whatever choice you make should elevate your teaching. It should make it so that all of it's easier. All of it feels more fun, and that none of it is like God, I hope I don't have to try and like show them, you know, this part of a piece of music. I don't know how to do that. You would like try to get ahead of it to the best of your ability. Otherwise, again, I have a big stack of things over here for tech. This is that red box that I love so much, my audio interface. I switched from a laptop over to an actual computer, which I got a separate monitor for on the side. Again, I like having that setup of like a control station here, a watching station there. You can't really see it, but there's a Thunderbolt there, a Thunderbolt hub there, which is like the maximal version of a USB hub. So it's sort of like future-proofed in a way that it at least will never be a bottleneck. It at least never struggles to provide power to all of the things that are plugged into it. Never struggles with any sort of bundling. It's a beauty. Highly recommend. They're kind of expensive, but if you're going to do it all the time, the actual like marginal rate of that drops and drops and drops and drops. So from there, this is just a list of the things that I use. So the only thing I really want to say on here, I ultimately upgraded my keyboard again. How many of you have keyboards? Okay. How many of you know the difference between a sampled and a modeled keyboard? Okay, good. Any of you want to explain it? Okay. So essentially, when it comes to electric pianos of any kind, there are essentially two approaches. One is let's imitate. And so they take really, really detailed recordings of, let's say, a Yamaha CX-7 or a Börsendorf or something or other. And those recordings come from, yes, they'll go in and they'll play it or whatever, but they'll like mute every single string, and they'll take one string and they'll sit there, they'll bow it, they'll pluck it, and they'll do everything they can think of to it, so they get this massive bank of samples. And then they stitch them together with software, stretch them out over this way and that way, and they get to a point where it's like, wow, this kind of feels, at least it sounds like this instrument or that instrument. And they're lovely. They tend to be missing some sort of fundamental elements of sound. So like something, in addition to being super overexcited about technique, I get really overexcited about crushing my hands in the fallboard. Son of a gun. Oh, there we are. We're gonna get there. Don't worry, everybody. There we go. I get really into things like overtones. That I think it's just so fun to point out how they work, like how strings and sound and all that stuff comes together. And most sampled instruments don't have that. But modeled instruments do. Because modeled instruments are basically like video game engines or something. It's a physics engine. They say, here's how sound works. Go nuts. If it's this long and that other one's half as long, well, it should work like this, so on. So the Rolands are really good at that, so I switched over to that. Anyway, all the rest of this is stuff that we've kind of talked about, or will as we go. Student staging is so critical. It's like, you can have all the stuff in the world, and that is great, but if you want to be able to actually teach them, if you want to be able to respond to what they're doing, and why what you're hearing is what you hear, you need some minimal line of sight. And generally, I try to set my students up like this. And these are a collection of students with different setups. So August here on the left is sort of the worst setup insofar as he just has a smartphone on his piano. In general, if you can, avoid having mics actually sitting on the instrument. They will catch a lot of extra noise. So he's a kind of a nightmare sometimes, but he's a great kid, and I can see him. There are little things, so I'll periodically have to ask, like, hey, will you show me just your left hand? Everybody can see why I can ask that, right? Or why I have to ask that, because you can only see his right hand when they're both up there. Lily does not have that problem, because Lily is sitting there with a laptop elevated. She's got an iPad in front. Neither of them have headphones, which is its own little nightmare that we'll get into. But, so this is, again, we'll kind of keep coming back to the audio interface thing, but one of the things I like about it is all the knobs, and one of the things that I like for those knobs is when I have a student like August, and he's suddenly like blowing out my ears because he's so loud, because his phone is sitting on that piano. So I can reach over and I can turn down my headphones, and that's the only thing I affect, and it's fluid, it flows, it's great. There we go. This is Josiah and Cyrus. Josiah has a laptop to the side, is on headphones, but has nothing in front. So a problem I run into with some of my students, and this is not limited to like teaching online, but certainly it comes up a lot online, is you ask your students, hey, so let's get ourselves set up. You know, maybe, oh, am I too far? Oh, great. Okay, what about this? Am I too close? Okay, let's get into the right position. We'll do our, karate pose or whatever it is. Great, we're here. And then they turn to look at you. You're like, we just spent like a minute getting you into that position. Now I'm going to say like one little thing, and you're going to, okay, I'm going to go back here now. And you're like, we have to do it all over again. So if you can get them into a situation where they have something in front so that they can stay watching you without having to turn around and turn around and turn around, it just makes the whole experience much more fluid. If you can get them to have a mic, it's a much more pleasant experience for you. And I'll say that like some people, or at least something I've seen in the past in teacher forums on Facebook and stuff like that, people will balk at the idea of like convincing their parents to get mics. Oh, it's expensive, they have to spend this or that. But I guess what I would say to you to bring to them is think about how much you pay me for a lesson. And you can get a decent mic, like you can get a snowball mic for like $50, often less, and they will work like a charm, like a very decent USB mic. Yes, Gracie?
I have another argument for you to offer.
Go ahead.
They're saving by not commuting to your house.
Oh yeah.
So there you go, they can do that money to have a mic.
Oh yeah. No, I think there are, strengths and weaknesses on both sides, but there are plenty of strengths to point out about teaching online or taking lessons online. Like I still take lessons, I take my lessons online, I love it. I hated driving to my lessons. It was like an hour and a half both ways, and I lived in Beacon Hill and he lived in Ballard. It was ridiculous.
Ryan, how do you watch their foot? That's one thing that I haven't figured out how to do.
Well, it's sort of probably the trickiest thing. You could work it out in a way where if this sort of side angle were pushed back a bit, so like if we kind of put ourselves into the view that's watching like Cyrus, let's say, or if we were to put ourselves into the view that's watching Josiah, we would just want to look down a bit and probably scoot back a little bit.
So ask them to scoot everything.
Like pull it back a tad, or, and again, like I think Cyrus has a phone on the side, so that one, he would have had something like this. And so that would have been the solution for him. Yes, Stephanie.
I teach a lot of online students, and that comes up for me. I've gotten my breath at looking at their bottom step. You look at their leg and see if they're lifting it too much.
It's the same thing with watching the shoulders if you can't see their hands. It's like you got to find those like lateral solutions to these problems.
Figure it out. So just watch the leg and see that we're done.
And it's
You can see the leg.
well, I mean, like how many people know like that one of the first places that stress shows up is in your shoulders? Like, is that kind of common knowledge?
Yeah.
So we all get used to watching that. And it's just one of those things, like it's a habit that you pick up because you realize like, oh my God, this tells me so much if I notice this little detail. Great. So anyway, yeah, the pedaling is tricky, but it's not without its resolution. It's just a matter of, it's often, I think, for us on the teacher's end of it, a matter of bridging that missing 5% or being like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to cover this because you've got enough there and I have enough knowledge that I can probably puzzle this out. So, student staging, very important. Don't forget to do it. You'll really thank yourself for it. Come on. Ooh, you little monster. Why are you doing that? Ooh, you little monster. Why are you doing that?
Brian,
Yes.
have you ever had like a student do like something? Well, okay, so I have a student who he's had his phone in front of him for the last 5 years. Have you ever had to convince a student who's been doing it for a really long time to do it differently?
And may I suggest repeating the question for the online people?
Thank you. I meant to do that actually with what Stephanie said. So Stephanie, just for the people that are online that didn't hear what Stephanie was saying earlier about the pedaling thing, she pointed out that you can kind of pay attention to the quadriceps and just see the twinge of the muscle in there. What Katie was just asking is if I've ever had a student where they just set themselves with a crappy setup and they just ride with it, and how to kind of manage that. And arguably, August is my student like that. And I do a thing where I charge a yearly materials fee. Whatever, I think $100 per student in August. And I charge that mostly because how many of you have asked a parent or like told a student or told their parents like, oh cool, we need this book next week. And then like a month later they finally show up with that book. So yeah, I hate that. So I charge them a fee and I get them what they need. And so like with students like that, what I've done in the past, with August it has yet to quite take, but his is kind of good enough. What I've done is I'll just get them the thing. So I'll get them something like this, and again we'll be like, here's what you do. Like I would have brought other things, except I recently like sourced out some of my stuff to a new student. It was like, okay, we're gonna give you this snowball mic, we're gonna give you this little stand so that I can be watching from the side, so that we don't have this situation where I'm like, can you hear, hey, will you, and like all these stupid little moments that just eat away at whatever 30 minutes that you have with a student. Everything all right?
Oh, yeah, I was just reading messages.
Okay. So, any other questions or anything so far? Maybe there will be more. Yes?
So you actually make a house call to set up their stuff?
I actually make house calls where I can. Like I know I have about 5 students in California. I have a student in Pennsylvania. I have a student in Costa Rica. Like there are students I cannot make house calls for. But for the ones that I can, I do periodically. Or I will often, like that first meeting with a parent, getting somebody onboarded to my studio is a lot of, okay, you really got to understand, like this part's very important. That like, I need to actually be able to see this, like getting this set up, getting these things set just so is the difference between like a useful lesson and just like we're kind of hanging out. Anything else? Cool. And again, there will be more opportunities to say yes to that question. Making the most of your phones, I'm going to try and zoom through here as much as I can. Phones are great. Webcams are fine. I find them kind of inflexible, and at the time when I was building all this stuff out, they were in short supply and high demand. So the phone thing is huge for me. Also, with Zoom in general, a way to bring in these multiple angles, you can bring a phone, a tablet, and a computer all in the same account. And you can also have, if you have like a dummy email address or something, you can have 2 accounts, and then you can double that number. So you can find ways to bring them in. Otherwise, there are apps that you can download that will turn a phone into a camera. So like those are listed up here. The 2, I really don't use any of them anymore because as time has gone by, the good people at Apple and Microsoft have gotten a lot better at making it so that phones are just recognized immediately by your things. So it's the secret garden. It's like, life is great in the secret garden. God forbid you leave. So like all of this stuff I'm able to do right now is because all of these silly things I have are Mac. So I can sit here like flipping through whatever slides with my phone because it can connect to Keynote. This can become a camera over there right away because they're both Apple. So there are little like network externalities to keep in mind where that kind of stuff is concerned. But at first I needed them, so things like IVCam for Windows, Camo for Mac. Epicam exists, but I wouldn't touch it. It feels like a virus and it never leaves. CleanFeed I actually use all the time. And CleanFeed is a simple app. You pay for it once. It's not expensive. And what it does is it basically just gives you a pure view of what your camera sees. So that's like where I bring in my phones. It's just like, oh, I just want to see whatever it sees, and I don't want to see any sort of framing or any other processing. Turn off notifications. This came up in the latest recital, but like this student was just starting his piece, and for the first like 30 seconds of the piece, there was just this boop, boop, bloop. And you're like, ah! What is going on here? It's just like they just hadn't silenced their whatever was watching. Like, oh man. And happily it stopped. The kid was playing well, and we got to hear most of it. Also, like, I don't know. If somebody decides to send you some weird text someday in the middle of the lesson, you don't want that to just like ring across the top of your line. So that's important stuff. As an example, this is sort of the difference here. On the left, you see a multiple login approach. So these are like a phone in front, a phone above, a phone to the side, watching. So that one on the side, the bottom one of the 3 is like, here, check out my hand. That was kind of what I had at that stage. Eye contact on the left. You can see I've got some little thing behind me that's like made it a flat background. And then you can see my overhead. On the right, you can't see it very well because, again, lighting. But that's OBS, which we'll talk about later, but this is essentially a program I use to bring many visual feeds into one place. It's sort of like a collage program for different media. So you can pull in like this video source and that picture and so on. And get what you want. So you can see though, like the general idea, same. I have an overhead, I have a side view, I have a front view, and then I'm using things like other software that I'll kind of mention as we go. And then instead of arriving in gallery mode like that, you get one big camera feed that you can spot. So, tablets are so important. Like they're up there with gimbals and with dongles and audio interfaces. But just as far as like things I lean on, they're the monitor that I'm looking at in front. If I want to show somebody on a whiteboard something, I pull out my iPad and I sit there with my stylus and I draw it. Instead of having to like tap at like a phone with my finger or try and mouse around to draw something on a whiteboard. It's a nightmare. So within that, you can use them like this. So you can't see it except for the bottom right corner, but this is all colored in to show like, these things happen again down here. And then this thing is a sort of unique ending to this other thing that, score study. We've gone through and we've analyzed it, we've colored it in. It was really easy to do in the lesson at that moment because I could just pull up the file and annotate in the lesson. It's great. On the left is a little bit of a view of a program I use called Journal. It's an iPad app, which basically I keep like notes on my students in there, and they each have a journal. So it's Atlas's journal, and that drawing is a funny little way I like to show how dynamics work. It's like everything can be quiet, but some things can get quite loud. Yeah. So iPads, a good time. For computers, basically, like, I had to take my computer down to studs to get it to work the way I wanted. I had just accumulated a bunch of nonsense for years. Just like, oh, I'll download this and forget about it. Or like, oh, I'll say yes to that and forget about it. And then I would be sort of uncertain as to why things didn't quite work when I wanted them to, or why things were slow. It was because you have a bunch of bloatware on there. You have a bunch of junk. Eats up space. If you don't have enough space, your computer's going to go slow. If you have it paying attention to too many things, like if you have browsers open while you're teaching, don't. Particularly Chrome. Chrome is a greedy little devil. And then otherwise, the question of where is my stuff is like an important one to manage, and it's hard to actually answer if you have all of this extra fluff in there. So like I just figured out like these pictures are important to me, I'm going to pull them to an external hard drive. This video is important to me, I'm going to pull it to an external hard drive. And then I set my computer back to the factory settings. And I went around and I got exactly what I needed to teach and nothing else. And suddenly I had a much nicer time. Suddenly I had far fewer moments of like, what is going on here? I just don't know. This window keeps disappearing and appearing and disappearing and appearing. Because it's a virus or it's just like garbage. Good. And then, yeah. As far as, does everybody know what RAM is? Like how it operates inside of a computer? It's like, okay, so RAM, it stands for random access memory, but basically it's just like your attention span. Or it's your computer's attention span, really. So like your hard drive it's like total ability to carry information, like your brain at large. And RAM is just like, what's going on over there? Oh, what's going on over there? And can I keep track of both of those things? So you want to have at least 8, which is pretty common these days. We looked at most of the software. OBS we talked about. Classroom Maestro was that little grand staff thing you saw. It's also got a light up keyboard kind of component, but all of those things rely on a MIDI connection. Paper was that app we were looking at. I use MuseScore a lot, particularly in lessons. So MuseScore is a notation software, which again, if you have a keyboard that has a MIDI hookup in the back, and you can run that to your computer, you can just play directly into that music. At least one hand at a time, one voice at a time. Which is great for students that are, that love making stuff up, but maybe struggle with the patience to read, because then you can say like, okay, well, let's go the other direction. You love making stuff up, let's figure out how to put that down. And then you at least kind of get a little bit of extra buy-in that way. Anyway, that's how I use it. Final Cut Pro is great for video editing if and when you need to do that. Google Drive, similarly. For both of those, I don't recommend what I'm about to say, but something I do, after a lot of my lessons with the kids anyway, is I make a video of what we just talked about and the things they need to watch out for in the week ahead, and then I drop it in a Google Drive folder that is shared with them and their parents. Yes, that is the correct reaction. It is ridiculous, it's so much extra work, and half of them don't even watch it. But it's something where, at the very least, I get a lot out of it. When I come back, I can watch it, like speed run the video, be like, oh, this is where we were in our conversation. So at least I know. So that's helpful for me. And for the ones that do watch it, they play better and they learn faster than the ones that don't. So, fonts, always fonts. Billing, scheduling, it's a dream. Like, probably second on the list after joining the SMTA as far as like, literally like best things I've ever done for running a business, for like enjoying my occupation more and more, feeling more rooted in the community. So, as far as sound goes, sound is wiggles. I make a wiggle over here, and it wiggles over to you, and it wiggles into your ear, and it shakes what's in there, and then your brain processes that information. Mics work more or less the same way. There are different types. The ones that are important are generally the USB mics, and otherwise lapel mics. In terms of the easiest to access, and they'll have the biggest impact on your t-shirt. At the beginning of the pandemic, someone talked about like, oh, are you guys going hoarse? Shouting at the wall. It's like, well, no, I'm not, because my microphone's right here, so I just talk exactly the way that I'm talking right now, and I know that they hear me. And my audio interface has a handy-dandy little thing where my lapel mic plugs in, where it lights up green if it hears me well, it lights up orange if I'm getting a little hot, and it lights up red if I'm peaking. So like I can track those things and just knob it up or down. Device cameras or device mics are there, and if you need them, like students will often, if they don't have a mic, it's going to be their phone mic. It's going to be their whatever tablet mic, right? So those are fine, but the USB ones are generally better, like I've got one up here. And in general, exactly what you use will kind of depend on whether you're doing an acoustic instrument or a digital. You can plug many more things into a digital than you can to an acoustic, so there's kind of a built-in simplicity to the acoustic, I think. Who here has taught online on an acoustic instrument? Okay. How many of you just did like the camera to the side with the mic setup and just like set it at that? Okay. Yeah, it works. It'll do. You can add to it, like you could put something overhead, you can bring stuff in, but at least that. Where mics are concerned, be aware there are different heads. There are basically mics that hear the whole room, there's stuff that just hears in front of you, there's stuff that hears in front of you, and a little bit right behind. Mostly you'll probably want either that, everything in front and a little bit right behind, or everything. Just depends if you want to hear the room. Yes, the rest of that stuff we've more or less covered. There is a way to hook in different mics, but we're going to get past that for now, just because we're running short on time. We're not going to go deep on this, but it's just too cool, and it is actually like sort of important. When you are picking a mic, there are some really critical numbers they're going to talk about: bit depth and sample rate, which just like have a mental model of how clear is the picture and like how full is the picture. So for music, it's literally like bit depth is, if you've ever heard sound, you're like, everything's clear, I can hear it all, it's just sort of thin. That's bit depth. Bit depth is for every second, do I have 24 pieces of information or 16? And those extra 8 pieces, that's like your dynamic range, essentially. Sample rate is, how many pictures a second are we taking of the sound as it goes? You need at least twice as much as the highest note you're going to play. It's very cool why, but we don't have the time. Just know that you at least need these numbers. So 16-bit for bit depth, but 24 is better. 44.1 for sample rate, but 48 is better. Most of those better versions are pretty standard these days. Pictures. So, as far as simple setups, like everybody seems to be pretty aware of it, but you just plug it into the thing and then you're set. You're good to go. If you're using an audio interface, it's a little more involved. But basically it boils down to all the things you want. Your keyboard, your headphones, your mic, they plug into the audio interface. That goes to a USB hub, a powered USB hub. And that goes to either your computer or to a device. And so, that's the device. And you see that dongle? Very critical. Ridiculous word, but critical. Headphones. Gotta have them. I mean, like, you can do it without, but if you're not gonna have headphones, first off, you should have headphones on, because the speakers on your whatever laptop or the speakers on your computer, no generalist where sound or video is concerned is going to be better than a specialist. And everything that's sent to you is going to sound like crap, even if it's actually good sound, if it's coming out of a bottleneck of crappy speakers. So headphones are good, and if both parties are wearing headphones, you have far fewer of those moments like, what did you just say? Sorry, no, you go. No. Okay, sorry. Like that stuff sort of disappears because there isn't that interruption going back and forth, that like echo chamber. Generally, I'm a huge fan of straight cables on my headphones and long ones, so like I have a straight 20-foot cable that goes from my headphones to my audio interface, again, so that I can get up and move and not like rip everything out of its placement. Curly cables are fine, they just ended up feeling heavier. I felt more strain on my neck. There are things called open back and closed back headphones. I have a pair of closed backs here. They're the ones that you probably know. They're rather heavy. They're really not great for kids. And they shut you out of the room. So particularly if you're teaching on an acoustic instrument, you're not going to hear yourself the way you should. Open backs deal with that. So suddenly sound in the room comes through just fine. Also, they're way lighter, so you can actually wear them and not feel like discomfort. Ergonomics, again, don't hurt yourself. And then, at the end of it all, and Katie, I've done my best not to just read the slide. Let me read the slide here. At the end of it, I think Katie and I talk about presentations and stuff. She's like, I kind of hate it when people just read the slide. I mean, I know I did that, but just, so I've been doing my best to avoid it. But anyway, the ideal is we have tidy fidelity. So like everything shows up true. Everyone's using headphones and a mic. We have everything visible and clarified. Everything's arriving at once, so we don't have, yes?
I mean, we can't read the slide, so if you want to read
Oh, tremendous. Okay. So for what it's worth, then, all the words I've been saying have been the spirit of what's actually written on the slide. For everybody at home, isn't it nice that you can actually see this all really nicely? This will be my upgrade eventually. I'll get a better one of these. And then you want what you need to be in reach while you're seated. So that was, again, like at the very first setup I had to run downstairs constantly. I gotta go grab this book, or I gotta go get this thing. And it's just a hassle, so you want your stuff close. You want to be comfortable, you want to be able to move freely. So, as far as settings go, I know I'm at 50 minutes. I'm gonna kind of blow through this pretty quickly. But is that all right? And then I'll cut to questions and answers? Okay. I don't expect you to read this, but what it is saying is that there are a few different levels of Zoom. There is zoom.us, the website, and you can think of this as your general account. Everything you do there will affect everywhere you ever interact with Zoom. And there are some super important things to do there. If you've ever been in that situation of like, why does their meeting look like this and mine doesn't? Like, why can they find this in their Zoom and I can't? Well, there's two likely answers. One is they might pay for it and you don't. And so there are flat out more things that you can do if you pay for it. But again, if you're going to teach on any regular basis, just think about the per hour cost by month. It's like $18 a month. But if you teach 20 hours a month online or something, it's under $1 a day. Or $1 an hour, rather. Anyway, so setting aside the paid, not paid disparity, if you go over to the website, if you go over to your account settings, that is where you would turn on the ability to have a whiteboard. That's where you would turn on the ability to share your screen. That's where you would turn on the ability to annotate. Like critical things in Zoom. That's where you turn on the ability to have a co-host, which is what Leanne so gracefully made me at the beginning of this. Turn on the chat, turn on breakout rooms, so all and more, but all of that stuff at least. Meanwhile, over at the phone or the computer or whatever specific device you're using, there are settings for that too. That's typically where you would pick your mic or your speakers. You would turn on the ability to have original sound. Has everybody heard those words before in context of Zoom? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Do you know what original sound is? Okay, original sound. Basically, the good people at Zoom went to a lot of trouble to cut out things like fridges and air conditioners and traffic. And what they did to do that is they essentially made a panther sound. They said, like, kick that up, kick this up. If something's droning, we don't want it. But if you're playing music, you might want to hear this whole thing. So that's not going to work. You can turn it off. And exactly how you do it on different devices will vary. But in general, in all of them, you would go to settings, you would look for something called original sound, you would enable it on the client level settings, so like the device settings. And then there's some other stuff, like I like to hide non-video speakers. So like with the thing that I watch on, for instance, I turn off the video feed, so I don't want a black box sitting there. I haven't done this yet, but I think I should. You can turn off self-view. How many of you, when you're in a meeting, stare at yourself? Don't lie, you can put your hands up. Yeah, everybody does, humans do. Like, Narcissus is a story for a reason. You like, oh, who's that? You sit there, you have a conversation, you're like talking to your loved ones, and you're staring like, what do I look like? So like, I try and coach my students to get rid of those videos, and you can even do it at a settings level. Again, I haven't gotten any bites on that yet, but I think about it every day. Every day I teach anyway. And finally, there's the meeting settings. And these are the ones that you generally have to do over and over and over. But there's not a lot of them. It's really just once you've enabled original sound, going in to turn it on. So that's really the big thing. You can't see it. You might be able to see a little red lining up here. There are words in there. The words are original sound for musicians, on. And when you join a meeting on a computer, the words will be original sound for musicians, off. You click those words and it turns on. But you got to do it every meeting. If you're on a phone or a tablet, you would have to go in and go to the little dots, find more, perk it up. There's going to be the words enable original sound. Same thing. If it's on, the words will be disable original sound. And we can maybe look at that in just a second, even though I'm going deadly over time. Well, not over yet, but long. Computers are better than tablets, which are somewhat better than phones, all of which is so much better than a Chromebook. I don't have a Chromebook anymore, but at last check, like, they just don't have original sound as an option. So, like, I wouldn't take a student that only has a Chromebook, because it just doesn't work.
I just realized that was a huge problem. Why they didn't find the original.
Yeah. No, they just don't have it. So, like, Chromebooks are not computers.
It's in like half an hour.
They're like digital typewriters, and that's cool. Like, they're great for that. But they're not computers. People don't program for them like computers. So, yeah. The other thing, so Chromebooks is a big thing that people miss when it comes to just like, why can't I get this student to sound right? Or why can't I sound right? The other one is that PCs, that is to say like Windows machines, have their own version of all that good work the engineers at Zoom did. So the good people at Microsoft also went in and said like, I don't want to hear that traffic in the background or that whining, whatever, fridge in the background or that, cat fountain over there, or whatever it might be. So you have to find audio enhancements. It's a little bit of a dive, but basically you go to your control panel, you go into sound wherever it lives, and if you just Google how to disable audio enhancements, Windows PC, like, you'll see a step-by-step that pops up at the top of the list. But people miss that one. It's not commonly talked about, but it's very important if you have students that are on Windows machine. Speed matters. If you're actually like hooked in with a hard wire versus on Wi-Fi, it's about twice as fast, if not more. And in general, like, again, no bottlenecks, so have an abundance if you're able. And as far as community goes, so the biggest things that I have here are just recitals and group classes. Big things with recitals. If it's for your students, and you've already gone through the steps of helping them get set up in the way that you've set yourself up, all they have to do is log in and join. People can join in from anywhere in the world. Family members that can't usually come can be there. The recording element of it is as easy as could possibly be. Sharing it similarly. Again, I think that the more opportunities, the more easily you can give your students opportunities to practice performing, the better. But it's just a challenge to get everybody in one room more often. Venue expenses are, rising, ever more so. But you don't have to worry about that with something like this. So they're nice for that. And you can do little like group projects. That's been one of my favorite things to do, where it's like, oh, we're all going to take a piece in this book, or a piece in this, or part of this suite, or something. And then for group classes, just a couple different ideas, same basic logic. Instead of everybody having to drive over to your house, everybody just logs on. Nobody can forget. All they have to do is go sit down and turn it on. So things you can do in those group classes, you can do mini master classes, you can do a practice party with breakout rooms, so like everybody touches base, like, okay, I'm gonna try and work on this. Throw them on to breakout rooms, 10 minutes or something, and bring them back in. Okay, how did it go? And like, what did you try? And you can kind of visit around. Viewing parties. So I've only ever like put my foot in my mouth with these, but you can watch things. So like, I wanted to watch Amadeus because I totally forgot that the very beginning of Amadeus is like rather violent. So we watched it with children, and I'm sitting there like, oh God, I'm sorry. Same thing with Fantasia. I was like, oh, let's watch a bit of Fantasia, and we get into it. I was like, oh God, racist. Oh man. So like, there's a way to do it that's better than the way I've done it, which is probably just like watch it beforehand, like be a little more careful. Past that, you can do little seminars and things. So like, I signed some of my kids up for the Piano Inspires Kids or whatever, and you can have a thing where like, oh, we're like, everybody pick one and then come and present on it or something like that. Musical show and tell, what do you like, what do you listen to, why? Composition class, diving in on concepts, stuff like that. And at the end of it all, it's not easy, but it's easier than music. Like the adults I teach that are like very savvy with tech, crack up when I talk about it, because they're just like, you guys realize you just read schematics all day, right? It's just that it's music, that's all. So like, this stuff is awkward and funny, and it can be fussy, and a lot of the time when things go wrong, it's like invisible at first, and that's annoying. But I promise you, it's easier than music. It's just another thing you have to learn, that's all. So, Pete. Questions? I will turn back a look in just a sec. I'm just going to stop sharing here. But, are there any questions? Yes, Christine.
Do you teach only online now, or do you mix?
So what I do is I am a part of the Gallery 1412 collective or whatever over on Capitol Hill. And so once a month, sometimes twice, but once a month typically, I'll go up there and I send out like a little sign-up poll. So everybody that's in the area can sign up, basically tell me all the times you can make it between, 11 and 3. And then whoever signs up, I'll send out a little thing. And they come and join me. And so I augment it with that. But for the most part, yeah, I'm just online. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Ben.
When I was doing a lot of teaching online, there were always some students that, if you tried to do the original sound, would get hideous feedback consistently, and could never figure out what it was. So we would have to have them turn it off in order to get any satisfaction out of it at all. So, barring having to do that again, what would you suggest? They had a computer, they had a mic, independent USB mic.
Did they have headphones?
They did not have headphones.
Did you have headphones?
I had headphones.
Okay. They should have had headphones, basically.
Why was the feedback?
Well, because the feedback, like Zoom, a decent mental model for Zoom is it's just like the silliest telephone switchboard operator in the world. It doesn't know what sound is important and what's not. So if there's an open mic anywhere, and there is a way for sound to come out of a speaker set that's right next to a mic and send it back in, like you end up with loops. And like the more headphones you have, the less that happens. I think I remember at least one situation you described that I do remember being like, well, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that person. But things that I would look into would be first the mics. Otherwise, muting. Like that's one of the easiest things you can do in the middle of a lesson when you're working with somebody and things aren't quite right is like, whoever's not playing, mute yourself. And that sort of like clears the signal path.
Yeah, I haven't obviously have a muting button on what I'm working with, so I would usually mute, which was somewhat helpful, but still, the sound was never good.
Sometimes weird things will happen. Like I've had that kid August, like it's not his phone. So I've had things in the middle of our lessons where like suddenly the sound will go to his grandmother's like hearing aids. Because they're like connected by Bluetooth. Like I've had issues with the recitals that we do, like the online recitals, where similarly like the sound was being sent to the mic. And so like that was essentially noising the signal. And so it was just this like nightmare until we figured out like, oh, you need to set your speakers to speakers, not the mic. They had some mic that allowed for that to happen in the first place. They're like, little things will come along that are like uniquely strange, but there is almost always a way to deal with it, unless it's a conflict. Definitely.
Oh, do you know if there's any progress anywhere for being able to play simultaneously in Zoom? Or I'd rather not have to go to a different program, but have you heard it's like they're gonna get there, does it look like?
Who?
Well, like, for instance, maybe the program Zoom or somewhere that you can play simultaneously without the latency, or is that?
The short answer is yes. And we can kind of go peek at it. But basically, Zoom's been working, by the way, I didn't even address this. There are other platforms that you can use for teaching online, but all of them are sort of like bespoke, boutique little things for music teachers. And like, we're a cool bunch, but there aren't quite enough of us to really support like a software company. In the same way that like Zoom serves so many people, and they have so much like income from that. Like essentially they're stable, let's put it that way. So they can split a little bit of their like ridiculously large amount of attention to musical things. So they do upgrade. So they have a thing, and again, I don't know why I brought it up, like you could read anything here, but there's a thing on here underneath the original sound stuff that says live performance audio, which is I think their effort to get to that. So it's their effort, among other things, to get past the switchboard operator thing. So it's trying to let multiple signals flow freely, is I guess the idea. I have yet to be able to really test it in earnest. The thing that I know does work is Jam Kazam. The problem with any of the things that actually let you do simultaneous duets, and it's always like a lie, right? Like, things take time. So there is not actually a simultaneous solution, but what Jam Kazam does is it sort of fudges the differences. So you turn down your actual like IRL in real life output of sound. You turn up the like whatever digital output from the program itself, and they offset it ever so slightly. So like to a degree that you don't really notice it when you're playing, but it is technically a little bit behind you. And that is enough for them to basically rope in what they have coming in from anybody else that's with you, and everybody hears themselves a little bit late, an almost imperceptible amount late, but that's enough for the experience to be synchronous, yes?
But that's only audio. They don't have video.
Jam Kazam?
Yeah.
They do now.
When I was doing it.
I mean, I don't know that I would use it for video, really. Though you can, it's there. They are definitely, like, their thing is audio. You're totally correct about that. But they have, like, it's built in. I was hoping to actually test it out with Josie leading up to this. But I have tested it out with my dad and just done, like, basic piano and cello duet stuff, and it works.
Could you screen share it in Zoom? Like, open it, like, in Google, and then no, it's a separate app. I just am wondering if you can use it in Zoom to, like, supersede.
Well, I guess what I would say is, if you're doing a duet, like, particularly if you're doing any, like, involved duet, are you, like, how much are you watching and how much are you playing and listening? Like, I don't know, I guess it seems like the audible stuff is more important to begin with, and, like, you'd run into kind of an uncanny valley, otherwise. Like, if you're trying to, like, split the video feed and the audio feed. And so, like, I think if you're playing duets, and all the sound is arriving as it should be, and you're hearing everything at once, I don't think whether or not you can see them clearly is, like, the important part at that point.
Oh, no, I was just more kind of thinking, like, okay, so now I'm gonna leave the Zoom environment and have you guys go open a different app, and, within a lesson. I was just trying to figure out how to work that in without having to just, like, shut down Zoom, go open another app, have you meet me over there.
Yes.
Without that kind of hoops.
I mean, in that situation, I would probably, because I do a lot of asynchronous duets. I'll do a lot of like, okay, what's our tempo? I'm going to count us in, and then like, blah, 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 come in after the end, and then we just go and kind of get used to like recognizing like, you're consistently behind me. Great, we're on. Or like, you're all over the place. And you kind of you learn how to watch, right? with Jam Kazam, you also have like a fairly high tech barrier. So like all the audio interface stuff that I was talking about, like I would never ever do it without it at this point, but you don't actually need it, as everybody showed us. Like everybody was able to do it with just a mic and a screen to the side. But if you're going to use Jam Kazam, you actually do need an audio interface. You do need headphones. You need a hardwired connection. So like the tech barrier is much higher.
I'm just gonna check if there's any questions from Zoom.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry that I probably could have been doing that myself.
No, there are not. Just a lot of thank yous.
Oh good, my pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Oh, go ahead.
So, before the pandemic, I taught occasionally online, 1 or 2 students, but not much. Then the pandemic, I taught everybody online for over a year. When they came back after the pandemic, I was horrified because their sound had gone. And I realized that the microphones and the interface and everything was making them sound so much better than they actually were. Is there some kind of a test that you can do actually to hear what they sound like, rather than, oh, that's beautiful because I turned up my knobs, or because you know?
I think so. I mean, the turning up the knobs thing doesn't really change the quality of the sound so much. It's more that, like, the way I use it anyway, I have a knob that is the volume of my keyboard that I'm sending out. I have a knob that's the volume of my voice that I'm sending out. I have a knob that is the volume of my headphones that I'm bringing in. But whatever, like, the thing does for my sound, massaging it on the way out, it doesn't do anything for them on the way in. And I guess, again, I watch a lot, so it's kind of like the quadriceps thing. I look for like how their bodies look when they're playing. I watch really, really carefully to be like, does that look like you actually just dropped? Like, did you just do, or, I swear I can do this. You know, is this what you're doing? Or are you doing like, and then I poke out, and then I poke out or whatever, and then I sneak some little thing in there that is actually not what we're trying to do. Or it's like, oh yeah, no, I kind of move my arm like this, but when my elbow's over here, I'm playing a note up there, and then when I'm kind of back here, I'm playing over my pinky, and you learn to, or at least that's the experience that I've had, is one of getting better and better at noticing like little details that tell me more. And then I have those office hours. So. Also, like, I think what you're describing, I mean, like, I don't know what it, I assume your students mostly play on grand pianos, Peter. But like, I have that issue that you just described because of students that play on, you know, crappy digitals or something. And so that's one of the first things I try to bug parents about. It's like, look, if it must be digital for whatever footprint or whatever, okay, fine, but you know, this one or that one, that's going to give us a little bit more of a shot at actually having the right feel. There are like so many problems that can come up. And I guess the deepest thing I want everyone to walk away with is like, probably there's a solution. It's just not necessarily like how you've done it in the past, or you might have to look for those kind of lateral feeds of information. But at least so far, I have mostly been able to find those things. Even if it's sometimes taken like a deep dive into really like weird recesses of the internet. Anything else? I mean, it's like, there's way more to talk about with teaching online in general than could possibly be covered in one thing, but I tried to really stick to the literally like the nuts and bolts spirit of it, so hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Happy to help.
I know I'm behind you all. I just wanted to say, before you go, make sure to grab an awesome treat that was so nicely made by Suzanne. So thank you so much for bringing the treats today. Yeah, and this is our last general meeting of the year. So hopefully we'll see you all back in September. Have a great summer. I'll see you guys later. At the party. At the party. Yes, at the tapas or the opera or any of that.